You're listening to Boomers Today with your host, Frank Sampson.
Well, welcome to Boomers Today. I'm your host, Frank Sampson. Of course, each week we bring you important and very useful information on issues facing baby boomers, their parents, and other loved ones. And as I always do on each show, is I thank all of you for all your support. Our listeners grow organically each and every day, and it's because of you. You share particular podcasts or our show with friends and family, and I just want to thank you for that. So many of you listen to the show on either Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spreaker, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, or actually may even go to our website at Aging Boomers, Boomers Today. Aging Boomers was the former name of the show, but boomerstodayradio.com. So thank you so much for all your support. I really appreciate it. And I know why so many of you tune in, and more are tuning in to shows because we have great guests that are very educational, and we're not going to disappoint you today. We have with us Jessica. Jessica, I meant to ask you the correct pronunciation of your last name. Is Bibbo?
Oh, it's Bibbo.
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 Okay, I want to make sure I got that. So Jessica Bibbo is a Ph.D. and is also a research scientist in the Center for Research and Education at Benjamin Rose Institute on Aging, where she works on research and evaluation studies to better serve older adults and their caregivers. Dr. Bibbo's research focuses on aging, caregiving, and human-animal interaction. Their work investigates the impact of pet ownership and the human-animal bond on the lives of older adults and their families. So Jessica, thank you so much for joining us on Boomers Today. Really appreciate it.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so I'd love to learn more about the institute that you work for. I know it's in the Cleveland area, Benjamin Rose Institute on Aging, and the research you do. It's quite unique. So tell us more about it.
Sure. Well, Benjamin Rose Institute on Aging was founded in the early 20th century. It's been running for over 110 years. And it was started by Mr. Rose, who was an industrialist in the Cleveland area, who saw a need for helping older adults who really didn't have family. And so he really started what turned into a nonprofit. The board has always been all women because at the time they felt that women were more, caring. And that has continued. It's still an all-woman board. But now we are a pretty diverse institute in that we have 5 subsidiaries, some of which do direct service. We have a behavioral health. We also do financial counseling. We have senior centers in the Cleveland area. We have 6 senior centers and also deliver home delivered meals throughout Cuyahoga County. And then I'm in the Center for Research and Education, and that's been around since the 1960s. And we do applied research, so we're doing research with people out in the community. And we also have developed evidence-based programs for helping caregivers. One is for really kind of caregivers in general. And then another, and that's BRI Care Consultation. And then SHARE is a program that was developed specifically for people shortly after diagnosis of dementia, so that a person living with dementia and their care partner can have conversations about what they both want and planning.
That's great.
And so today, it's a really great place to work in that, you get to see some of your research have a direct impact. And my research, as you said, I focus on human-animal interaction. So I I focus on how pets impact people's everyday lives as we age. And I'm also very interested in how pets shape the caregiving experience. So the work that caregivers do, and also how it can impact, any kind of caregiver burden and satisfaction as well.
Great. Well, let's talk a little bit about that. I think, and I've been in the senior care industry for a while, and certainly just know from experience what an impact pets can have on older adults. But talk to us more about that research that you've done about that. I'm sure it confirms it, but maybe expound upon that a little bit for us.
Yeah, well, I'm really interested in the benefits, but also the challenges that people face in pet ownership, especially as, either abilities change or resources change. And, I have a very strong feeling that by facing challenges and planning, that allows people to enjoy those benefits of pet ownership. And, those benefits is, I think after the living in the pandemic, certainly kind of heightened the our awareness of social isolation. And that certainly is not something that is an older adult issue. That's an every age issue. But pets can play a very important role in mitigating loneliness. The relationship with a pet can be particularly important for individuals who are more isolated or homebound. But they can also be very important for people who are not facing those kinds of challenges. They are, for most people who do choose to live with pets, they're really a family member. They're a really important part of people's lives. And one thing that is particularly important for older adults is that a pet may be that last relationship in which another being is dependent upon you. That need to care and to provide and to love and to support another person, that need to be needed doesn't disappear because you've had a lot of birthdays. That continues throughout our lives, and pets can provide that for people. And because of that, they also provide, some motivation for daily activities, routines in daily life. And all of those are really important for our regular, everyday health behaviors and health decisions.
Right.
So they can really be a way to support both our physical well-being as well as our emotional and psychological well-being.
Great. Well, it's important. So would you say, and again, just be interesting to know, those older adults, would you say that many older adults with pets maybe grew up with pets through their childhood, and maybe even when they possibly had children and they grew up with pets? Or do you find that many older adults start, caring or having pets later in life and maybe never had pets previously? What do you find there?
I think it's actually, we find that rates of pet ownership decline with age. And so I think people who have had pets tend to choose to keep having pets. And most people, the choice or decision to not be a pet owner anymore usually is a very practical decision, in that people, especially when they're older, worry that the pet may outlive them. And a lot of people, we take on the responsibility of being a pet owner, take it very seriously, and want to be sure that we can see it through, essentially. And also just as abilities change, people may not be pet owners. And one of the things that is interesting in the research is that when older adults live with another person, at least one other person, they're more likely to be a pet owner. So there seems to be something about being able to share in those responsibilities and everyday tasks that having another person is supportive in continuing pet ownership.
Right. What about the caring of the pet? I've been more of a dog person. I know there's cat people, dog people, bird people, but I kind of grew up with dogs and had dogs when my kids, were growing up, and it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. They're wonderful to have, but a lot of work. What are your thoughts, or what does your research show for an older adult having to care for a pet like that that might be more challenging for him? Especially, I guess, maybe we even talking about people with dementia.
Yeah, that's a great question. And it gets to something that's really important, is a good fit of a pet. That it should be a pet, one that you love and get along with, but also that it's like an appropriate pet, in that you can do the basic care tasks. And for individuals, who rely on someone else for those kind of everyday tasks, who rely on caregivers, they are likely going to have difficulty in basic pet care tasks. And that's what I've seen. I recently just completed a study where I surveyed professionals who worked with older adults, persons with dementia, and caregivers. And I wanted to know what pet-related issues they had seen in their career, in their time working with these people. And basic pet care was the most common challenge. As you're saying, it's a lot of work. There's, I am a cat person. I've always lived with cats, but I don't have to, take the cat out every day, but, changing the litter box, and it is a lot of work. And it can also be a lot of financial resources. Transportation can be an issue. And what I found in my research is that caregivers do take on pet care tasks for older adults who are pet owners. And
Right.
What's interesting that you brought up dementia, there was a wonderful study done in the UK, and they found that people who are in early and mid-stage dementia, the care of a pet, doing those basic pet care activities, was beneficial for their overall well-being. It wasn't so much just being with the pet, but being able to care for it and do those activities is really important.
That's great. That's good to hear. So we're going to take a quick break, I promise. We're going to just recognize our sponsor. We'll be right back and learn a little bit more about your research, and maybe zero in even more on people with dementia and taking care of pets. All right. So do you know anybody who may be concerned about an older driver? Well, Senior Care Authority's Beyond Driving with Dignity program is a facilitated self-assessment program for older drivers. This program has been designed to serve as a vital tool to facilitate older drivers and their families as they make appropriate decisions regarding the future of one's safe driving career. If the individual is a safe driver, an advisor will provide him or her with strategies on how to remain a safe driver as they progress through the aging process. If driving retirement is the appropriate decision, then the individual and their family are offered possible alternatives, resources, and a specific plan to ensure a smooth and successful transition from the driver's seat to the passenger seat. So to learn more, you can go to www.beyonddrivingwithdignity.com, or you could call 877 907-8841 to connect with a senior care authority advisor in your area. We're back with Dr. Jessica Bibbo, who is a research scientist in the Center for Research and Education at Benjamin Rose Institute on Aging. So, Jessica, maybe before we get into some of the questioning, I'm sure that some of our listeners would be interested to learn more about the research you've done, or that that Benjamin Rose Institute is doing on aging. So how could they learn more, or how could they get in touch with you if they had any questions or anything like that?
Sure. Well, our website is benrose, BENROSE.org. And that they can find, we have an extensive online resource library of information either we've put together, journal articles that we've created, and we also, they can find about different programs that we have that I was talking about a bit earlier. And in terms of my work, I mean, I'm on there, but also I'm happy to give out my email address. It's simply JBIBBO, all three B's as in boy, at benrose.org. Yeah, and I'm always happy to connect with people. Great.
So I just have a question, just your thoughts, and I'm sure you may know some of this, but, I've done a lot of work with assisted living and memory care locations around the country. And I would have to say that probably the majority of the places do allow pets when someone is going to be moving in. But I think those that do, it might be a little different on the assisted living side of it versus the memory care side of it. On the assisted living side, as I say, it varies from place to place, but they may say you're allowed pets up to a certain weight size, but either you need to take care of that pet or you have to pay additional dollars, and, they'll provide a service that maybe will walk the dog, or take the pet out and feed them, et cetera, et cetera. And then on the memory care side, I would have to say, in most cases, again, not all, there's thousands and thousands of locations, so it's not set in stone across the board. But my experience shows that they usually do not allow pets. Okay, in the memory care side, they may have pets on the memory care side, but they may not be owned by a particular resident. Or if they do allow them, of course, they would have to have somebody that cares, will take care of them, a family member, etc. So, again, this is very general, but I just want to get your thoughts on that. What are your thoughts? Does that all make sense, or were you kind of surprised by that? Yeah.
Well, I guess I'm a little surprised at your estimation that most now do accept pets, and that's great.
On the assisted living side, yeah.
On the assisted living side, yeah.
Right.
And I think so. There's part of me that for the residents themselves, I would advocate that if it's feasible to be allowed to have a pet. But I also see the staffing side and just how much work, as you were saying, just being a pet owner in your own home. And then when you're a pet owner who's, you're basically a proxy pet owner if you're a staff member in a memory care kind of situation. So I understand why, it's more visitation of pets. But I do think, allowing for, if someone has had to transition from the community and isn't able to take that pet, be it because they're in memory care or for whatever reason, allowing that person to at least have visits with the pet, I think is really beneficial and important to keep that bond if at all possible.
Right.
Right. But yeah, it is a lot of work, and something that, well, I guess I'd be curious about your ideas about this too. But increasingly use of robotic pets, particularly for people with cognitive impairment.
Yeah, I've seen a lot. We see quite a bit of that, where, yeah, they're robotic. It's almost scary looking at them because they almost look real, and they move around, and they may even, bark or whatever. And we're seeing a lot. We're seeing a lot of that, and that can be pretty effective. So, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think they're great. I think that if it's something that is bringing a person genuine happiness and they're
Right.
engaged with it and it's something to interact with, I think it's terrific, especially, there's no safety concerns in the same way that, there's not going to be an accidental bite or scratch, or there's no, the dog or cat won't get hurt in any way. So yeah, I hope, well, if I should ever need one, I hope I get a cat one from somebody.
Yeah, got it. Yeah, I know. The first time I saw them, I went, "Whoa, that's kind of interesting. It almost looks real." It's fun.
Yeah.
So, what advice would you give to a family? I'll just paint the scenario here, and I hear this all too often. There's a couple, they've been married years, one of the spouses passes away, and let's just say mom is now living alone. The kids go, "Mom, why don't we get you a pet? Nobody's gonna replace dad, but somebody to keep you some, give you some company." But it's a little later in life that this happens. Any advice to the family in a situation like that?
Yeah, I think really what is imperative in that situation is planning and having planning conversations. So if adult children do want to introduce a new pet, first of all, it should probably be an adult already. I wouldn't advocate, kittens and puppies they're a lot of work. And I think having an animal who, like, its personality, is probably a better fit, but also that, those adult children should basically agree to take on that pet when either mom no longer feels able to care for the pet, or simply isn't, or if, she dies. And there should be plans put in place and talked about between family members that, this is what we'll do if your functioning changes, will help with the pet, because that's really what's going to enable that relationship to continue.
So years ago, at least if my recollection is okay, is good here, I think it's pretty good. When we used to get a pet, you went to a breeder and got a pet. All right. Nowadays, it's, people look at you funny if you do that. It's like to eat and get a rescue dog, okay, or, a rescue pet. And so I guess my question is, regardless what the feeling is on that, well, we were just talking about an older adult who is going to be getting a pet. All right. What are your thoughts regarding a rescue? Like you said, that maybe don't get a puppy. All right. Then what they probably would then getting a rescue, and then there could be some risks there. There could be, if you don't know enough about that particular pet, right? But just are your thoughts there?
Yeah, so I think a lot of shelters, they do a really good job in trying to match a person with the pet at the shelter, because it's in their interest to have that relationship work, and they don't want to see that animal again. They want that animal to be in its forever home and be happy as can be, and the person to be happy as can be too. And so I think most shelters try to set people up for success like that. And there are also some programs that specifically pair older animals with older people. They're typically called like senior to senior programs.
That's a great idea. That's a good idea. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, you're both maybe moving at like a more matched pace than, getting a younger dog in the house. And so, there are, and also the benefit to an older pet too is usually their personality. You'll get a sense of their personality. And usually at shelters, you can visit, more than one time. Some shelters do allow you to have take the pet home. There's also fostering, which I think is a great alternative to pet ownership, especially if finances are an issue, because most shelters will provide the food and all the vet care that's necessary.
Right.
So it's not as big a financial burden.
Well, Jessica, this has been enlightening. Thank you so much for joining us on Boomers Today. And I hope you come back in the future. Check out the website at benrose.org. Jessica, thank you so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Oh, thank you. It's been a pleasure.
You've been listening to Boomers Today with Frank Sampson. To learn more about today's show, visit boomerstodayradio.com and join us next time for another edition of Boomers Today.